Well, welcome everybody. And while Dave turns off the light behind him to change the lighting dynamic in that room, actually that works because lighting behind you is rarely a good thing.
No. Photographic, any photographer will tell you that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I realized. I've got lighting behind me. I didn't have to go off to the other side of the room because I've got one of those remote controls for this light. Anyway, so welcome everybody to Talking Niagara. And yeah, so you've chosen a few intriguing stories today.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and we'll get to them in a minute. Good morning, Mike Cushman. Good morning. So so when does Talking Niagara talk about kids' books?
Well, I just thought it was very interesting. I was not aware that Kash Patel, of course, is the head of the FBI now in the United States, and he's a forever Trumper. We often hear about the never Trumpers, but this guy's a forever Trumper. And I wanted to put out there because this is the kind of lunatic that Trump picks for his important posts. We've often heard over and over again that the Trump appointees are not really that very well qualified. We hear about Hegseth. We hear about others like RFK and so on. But when Kash Patel was being grilled by Congress the other day, or was it the Senate, I guess it was, he was being grilled by. And someone said there that Kash Patel had written these child's books, 3 of them. And one of them the first one was called The Plot Against the King.
Yeah.
And he himself is the hero of this story. Sir Cash.
A character by the name of Cash, yes.
Yeah, a character by the name of Cash, and he looks like Cash even in the book, because I looked it up this morning. And King Donald, it's all about, it's basically a child's political book.
It's it was a book about basically, well, everything that's gone on, some of the things that have gone on since he was first elected to power.
Yeah, so it's a political book for children.
Yeah.
It's a book for children. It's kind of like propaganda for children. As a matter of fact, it really, I don't really think it has a place, but it is to politically influence children.
Yeah.
Start them off early with his version of historical events in a child's book.
Yeah.
So in the book, the evil Queen Hillary of Queenton is expected to be the president, and what happens is surprising to all that Donald the Merchant wins the election. Donald. A little later on, they even put the name Trump in there.
Yeah.
So Donald the Merchant wins the election, but there is evil people afoot that will go around and then say that he didn't really win the election, and that an evil knight, a shifty knight, they call him, made sure that there was a letter in a steel box. And of course, that refers to the Steele dossier that about the Russian collusion that, well, it turned out to be fake Russian collusion, and that Kash Patel himself is the hero. He comes along. He's Sir Cash the Wizard, and he goes along and he saves the election, and Hillary Queenton is exposed as a cheater. And it even talks about the heralds. The heralds, of course, would be the newspapers, all being duped and all putting out fake news and lying to the people. And the people must say, "Oh, we don't have any proof, any real reason why King Donald shouldn't be the king." It is bizarre. It is
well,
bizarre.
This was a story that was reviewed by a children's author, Jill Twiss. And she actually says that, hey, she hasn't got any issue about Kash Patel becoming she isn't saying that he's against the book because Kash Patel would make a bad FBI director. She's judging the book purely as a children's book and merits of a children's book, separating the art from the artist.
Yes. Well, basically, well, for one thing, it is a political book aimed at children to influence their opinions, even as little children. I mean, I don't really think that children should be politically sort of geared towards an explanation. Of course, when they're really young like this, now they believe that King Donald was a hero and people were trying to cheat him and all this other stuff. So what they're doing is they're trying to lay the groundwork for their political opinions going forward.
Yeah.
And Kash Patel puts himself all over the book as the great hero of the thing because he really wants to enhance his own person.
Yeah.
Not only among children, but in Donald Trump's view, of course. And he's done this, of course, to curry favor with Donald Trump, but also to do this political book for children. It is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, but I don't like the idea that they're trying to influence the politics of children, begin to work on them when they're very young.
Yeah, but again,
like as adults, we get a chance to read different points of view of certain things, and we can come to the determination as we please based on the different things we read or are exposing ourselves. But children don't. They don't have an alternate point of view. You don't have, like Biden the emperor or something like that, who valiantly defeated King Donald in an election when King Donald strayed and into evil waters or something like that. So the kids are getting this book, and unfortunately, people are buying it and reading it to their kids. I think this is just, I mean, on the one level, it's hilarious. It's just idiotic and hilarious. And Kash Patel makes himself look like an egomaniac. Kash Patel, Sir Kash, is the hero of the story, and King Donald is triumphant. King Donald and Hillary Clinton. I mean, this is just out of, I don't know, just out of his imagination to enhance his own image.
Yeah.
As Kash. Go ahead.
Okay, so the trust basically says a couple of things. Illustrations, well colored, skillful, child friendly, exactly what you want in a children's book. And she says every time, so often, there's a turn of phrase that's silly and exactly the way kids' books should be. I didn't know that one. That's an interesting thought. So that's how to write a kid's book. Every once in a while, you kind of make those, weird turns of phrases. A duke refers to a terrible, tragical tangle full of rumors, which is so much fun to say. Right? Terrible, tragical, tangle full of rumors.
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you just
So of course, yeah. So he's
supposed to
dead.
be, yeah,
Okay, right.
it's supposed to be read out loud. So unless you've been, but the trouble is what she's saying is unless you've been in a coma since 2015, you already know what the story is and the plot in the plot against the king. It's been on the Fox News 26 times a day, and and every other station as well. So it begins on choosing day, when the whole land gathered at the castle to choose the next ruler. I'll just throw out there that if you write a children's book about an election, maybe you don't set it in a monarchy.
Really? Yeah, that's another odd thing there too.
Yeah.
They're talking about elections, but it's a king, and that kind of strokes. I believe he did that on purpose to stroke Trump's ego too, because Trump likes the idea of being king, evidently.
Yeah. Yeah, he believes he should be king, but he doesn't believe he should be king in the way that King Charles is king, where King Charles leaves all of the political decisions to Parliament. He believes he should be king in the way that that a monarch of the past was king, as in a dictator, a ruler.
Yeah, an authoritarian figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I don't know. I just thought that it was very revealing about the type of person that Trump seems to want to pick for his. I mean, the people that work for him. This is a guy that's the head of the FBI, and he was being grilled the other day, pretty bad. And of course, he came prepared with all the answers and deflections that he needed to, as do kind of like almost everybody that goes to Congress and gets chewed out by the Senate or the Congress or whatever. But I just thought I had known that he wrote this book. It is bizarre. It'll go down in history as an indication of what kind of a leader Trump was by what kind of a person he appoints.
There's been 4 such books, though.
3, I thought. Oh, 4? There should be 4?
I believe so. I thought I read 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there are more chapters, and this morning I took the time to find someone on YouTube that read off the book, and I didn't know whether to laugh or to cry, really. And but I mean, it's dumb. It's stroking his own ego, Kash Patel's own ego, making him out look like the hero, and of course, it's stroking King Donald's ego with Donald Trump and why he is the justified king of, and that kind of thing, and how they disparaged the heralds, which of course were the newspapers and the media, in the book. And I just thought, wow, this is bizarre. But what bothered me most about it was a political book aimed at children. Do you really want to indoctrinate children into politics at the ages of 5 years old? It's supposed to be 3 plus, I think, up. And on one of the booksellers, it mentioned 5 and up.
Yeah.
But really, do you want to indoctrinate kids and propagandize them at such an early age?
Well, they always say, though, there's an old saying, he who wins the youth wins the future.
Yes, but in authoritarian countries, they do that. They make children's books, they make other histories, they change history.
And you got children soldiers in some parts of the world, remember?
Yes, but just for their minds. I'm talking just for their minds.
Yeah.
In authoritarian regimes, communist regimes, or fascist regimes, they take control of the kind of literature that children or anybody else reads and starts to rewrite history the way they feel they should in order to enhance the regime.
Well,
this is very similar to that kind of thing.
The next story we've got is somewhat akin as well, right? In terms of controlling who says what in the media.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
we'll
this is
come on to that in a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, yeah, you see, the thing is, these are definitely, we know who the characters are. We know who they mean. And, you're blatantly using names. I'm surprised that somebody like Hillary Clinton hasn't been suing them for defamation.
I don't know if they can, because Hillary Clinton, you have to go through it's obviously who it is. Because it's a child's book and there's not much details in it, it would take a long, prolonged legal case, etc.
And sometimes those things are just not worth fighting.
Yeah,
it's clear defamation, but hey, sometimes just leave it alone.
But the book is propaganda for children, political propaganda for children, and that is ridiculous. But it's also scary. They're targeting the children. Trump is a noble hero. Cash is a noble hero. Other people aren't. The other ones on the other side.
Yeah, and the thing is about some of these is like I'm not one for comparing Trump to Hitler, but there's shades here of how you set up Hitler Youth, for example, back in the day.
We have to remember, like when all this stuff comes up about Trump being compared to Hitler. Who compared him to Hitler? J.D. Vance compared him to Hitler. When J.D. Vance didn't like Trump, he did that. Marco Rubio had things to say about Trump that were somewhat similar. When they talk about all the hate stuff that comes out against the Republicans, call them Hitler and fascists and stuff, well, they have called themselves that. Like J.D. Vance is kind of sort of seeing the light now, but originally he felt that Trump could be very much a Hitlerian figure, and he can be quoted as that too. So when you start throwing out comments like Hitler and fascists and stuff like that, you got to dig down deep to see who did it. You expect the far right leftist to use that kind of terminology, just like Trump calls Kamala a communist. Kamala Harris was always a communist. Well, of course, he's referring to the Stalinist type communism, and so he is at least as disparaging for the wrong reasons as someone who calls him Hitler.
Yeah,
that incites violence too.
Well, of course, the key issue about Hitler is Hitler understood, and the reason why Hitler had the Hitler Youth was he understood about that key factor that he who has the youth has the future.
Yes, and perhaps maybe that's what Cash and the Project 2025 folk are hoping on. That whole Project 2025 thing is eerie, where they want to replace everybody in government with conservatives. Conservatives indoctrinated, and this seems to be an early indoctrination of children at the very early on.
Yeah.
So it's scary. It's amusing, but it's also pretty scary given the fact that authoritarian regimes do this kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a whole heap of comments, as you might expect. Okay. Don't know this one. Colin Allen.
Hi, Colin.
References to. Good morning and shame on education, says Rose Fiddler. Okay. And Bernard Leddy. Colin Allen and Bernard Leddy. Yes, says Rose. Determined brain washing it learn. Demented brain washing is Washing is learned from who? I need a training partner now. That is the problem. Okay, and so many lies through the years of school. How do we know to say this is true? Yeah, fairly good point. Okay, so let's move on. ABC is stopping airing of Jimmy Kimmel over some comments that he made about Kirk.
Yes. So Jimmy Kimmel is being canceled indefinitely. It is for foolish comments he made on his Monday night show. He follows.
So I was actually curious about what these comments were. But I didn't find it, Phil, quite deep in there, deep in this article, right? And he basically said the US had hit new lows over the weekend with the Maga gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, doing everything they can to score political points from it. I believe that is the key comment that was actually criticized by Trump.
Now, first of all, the comment was foolish. He didn't dig down into the comment. Right now, you have the political influencers on both on the left and the right trying to point the finger at the political actions of the other. Jimmy Kimmel here, without doing any research, without looking deeply into it, starts to claim that the assassin of Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson, was a MAGA kid because his parents were MAGA, his friends were the neighborhood and the place in which he grew up was MAGA, and so he must be a MAGA guy. Well, and then of course the right is saying, well, he is a product of the left because he has a romantic, evidently a romantic connection with somebody transitioning from male to female, and therefore he must be left.
That doesn't.
Nobody's saying this guy's just a nut.
Yeah,
and he's been the typical profile of a person that's being very reclusive. If you talk to the people who were working with him, we stayed on his side. He was a bit on the fringe, a little bit thought to be a little bit off the whole thing, very isolated type of person. So whether you are from the left or the right, that pretty much that pretty much describes people who end up doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I would characterize him in my thoughts. His parents are MAGA, etc., etc. There's no way this guy's anything but a MAGA head type thing. I just don't. I would tend to agree with Jimmy Kimmel over this one, but we don't know enough about the person.
No, I wouldn't, and I wouldn't say anything. And this is what bothers me so much about the media, whether it's the right or the left. They jump to conclusions. They start to make their own conclusions, et cetera, et cetera. There are times that you have to wait for the evidence. There are times that you have to wait for the motivation, even if the amount of evidence you have now seems to point to in a certain direction. Jimmy Kimmel was foolish to say what he did. However, that doesn't mean that he deserves to be knocked off his show. It is what he said on his show that motivated ABC to get rid. I think it was ABC to get rid of him.
ABC,
yeah. And we have to remember.
But Kimmel also said this, right? In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this. Kimmel said, before cutting to a clip where Trump responded to reporters asking about how he was doing by pointing to construction going on at the White House.
Well, yeah, and I don't think it's, he there's something like that he could have pointed out, because obviously when Trump was asked about his friend and how he was handling the death of it, he quickly he says, "Oh yeah, I'm okay," but then he wanted to tell everybody about this great building project he had, rather than address the fact that of Charlie Kirk's tragic death.
But again,
so I could see that that might be a point, but anybody's grief is up to themselves anyway, and a lot of people don't like to dwell on.
Yes, I get
grief.
it.
It's upsetting.
I get it. Trump's grief is Trump's grief, and I'm not even going to go there, right? But, and here's the big but, there is nothing, and I'll repeat that, there's no reason that flags should be flown at half-mast, because this particular individual has nothing to do with the government.
No, he isn't. I can agree with that. All that stuff. I can agree that it did not merit. This guy.
There's no convention for that, right? There's no convention that says the president's friend gets flags waved at half-mast. Doesn't happen.
Now it says, now this happened under harsh criticism of the head of the U.S. Federal Communications Commission. This has nothing to do with them. They may be appalled by Jimmy Kimmel's message. They may be disagreement. Jimmy Kimmel was wrong in his messaging, because the guy is not a Maga guy, evidently. But in any case, he has no evidence to say that he was. Well, but the problem here is ABC. He did it on a Monday, and he didn't get canceled till Wednesday, which is 2 days later, and that evidently was from harsh criticism of the head of the U.S. Federal Communications and Commission. The Federal Communication and Commission has the opposite role, to protect Jimmy Kimmel's freedom of speech, as much as it might be wrong or distasteful, or, like, if in this particular case it was wrong, it was incorrect, it was not based on evidence. And so that is the real problem I see here, because when Stephen Colbert got dumped by his network, President Trump said the next guy that's going to go is Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah. And that's exactly what's happened. They were waiting for an opportunity to get rid of him. They put pressure on the network to get rid of him. And what does that tell you? They put pressure on the network for Stephen Colbert. They put pressure on the network for ABC to get rid of Jimmy Kimmel. This is the government stepping in and directing the broadcast of a network. That is an infringement of freedom of speech.
Well, here's I'm going to suggest some potential, and I'm not. It's not about what Jimmy Kimmel's saying. I'm not kind of following that. I'm not putting, my or what the other one. Who was the other broadcaster you just said?
Stephen Colbert used the other guy.
Yeah, Stephen Colbert. Thank you. I'm not saying anything about what their presentation, but I am talking about just their right to present. Well, here's an idea for some Canadian entrepreneur out there. You need to set up some alternative Canadian-based broadcast system that broadcasts either on on the internet or or on air directly to the USA from Canada.
Yeah, well, you could do, but then that would give the Teflon Don down there a reason to march up here and shut us down, or to hurt us more with trade embargoes or trade restrictions and all that kind of thing. You got to stay away from that. The message is very clear. The message is very clear here. If you want to exercise your free right of speech and you criticize the government, look out, we're coming from you.
Yeah.
That is the undercurrent here, especially when the government Trump has called for the dismissal of Kimmel and Colbert and any others that criticize the government, and the networks are responding, means that that's a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, it is. And as you say, the FCC is actually the organization that's supposed to enhance free speech and not be the organization that's saying, hey, you need to shut this down.
They're the ones that are saying, should be saying, well, we really don't like what Jimmy Kimmel says or Stephen Colbert says, but they have the perfect right to say it, and there's nothing we can do about it because it's a free speech forum.
Interesting thing is that Wanda Sykes was supposed to be the guest that night when they cancelled it, and she came out all dolled up, ready for the show, only to be the no-show.
Yeah, well, so it was a rather sudden thing, evidently.
Yeah.
Now ABC and the other networks are claiming that it's the ratings and stuff like that are motivating it. But in this particular case, I think that you do not want to get the ire of the president and have attacks on him. So they're going to take the easy way out and get rid of Kimmel or Colbert because they're irritated to the president, and they'll find excuses to get rid of them. Yeah. And that's why they keep saying, well, Colbert's numbers were down, Colbert's not in, and Kimball's a hack, et cetera, and a no talent hack, as Trump calls.
Well, that's what Trump called him, yeah. And that leaves it said, and he's quoted as saying that leaves Jimmy and Seth two total losers on fake news. NBC, Trump wrote, their ratings are also horrible. Do it, NBC.
Yeah, so he's out there calling for the dismissal of these guys. That's not what he should be doing.
The next ones is Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers, who are next in line.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I just for clarity, I didn't like Stephen Colbert. I watched anytime I watched him, I didn't like the show at all.
I just don't like those shows. You know, I'm not a fan of those shows.
Yeah, and I didn't like.
I used to watch.
I didn't like his one-sided take on things, and I didn't like the one-sided take that Jimmy Kimmel had. So anybody that has that strong of a one-sided take, I'm not interested in them.
Yeah.
I anytime I saw those shows or clips, if I saw them on TV, I quickly turned them off because I just didn't like left-wing influencers or right-wing influencers on the other side. I think they're I don't know. I just think they're very uninteresting. I didn't think Kimmel was funny. I didn't think Colbert was funny. So.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, years and years and years ago, I used to watch Letterman, right? A long time ago. Basically, what they did a deal with Letterman that basically Monday's show was on Tuesday night. It started 11:30, I believe, in USA. It used to be on Tuesday night at 11:30 in UK. So they did it literally the following day.
Okay.
Right. So we used to watch. I used to watch Letterman actually as it would have been on the prior night, but of course I found it interesting for a period of time, but then I got bored of it, and that whole genre of shows is just to me today boring as heck. Doesn't give me anything.
I've never liked any of the late night shows at all. None of them.
Some of
actually probably the only show I used to watch a long time ago, fairly I wouldn't say consistently, but I would watch the shows like Phil Donahue sometimes. because of the guests they had. If they had a guest that was a scientist or a guest that was a politician or something like that, and they grilled them. So I thought that was pretty interesting for a time. But
see, I didn't mind. I didn't mind some of the guests, and that would be the only reason why I might turn it on for a while, was because of a particular guest that was on.
Yeah,
but
so
I found that I prefer. That was kind of my last show before going to bed. So I thought to myself, well, you know what? I prefer something fictional in that slot.
Well, anyway, we can see the abrupt divide in the United States when you've got a guy like Jimmy Kimmel speaking without looking into it and proclaiming that this guy that Robinson was a Maga guy, and that the Republicans were trying to score points by saying that he wasn't, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there he was trying to score points for the left. I don't think he's any business doing that, but it is an indication on for us how far each side has. Each side speaks rubbish. And the influencers on the right and the influencers on the left speak little bits of truth in amongst heaps of rubbish, and nobody goes and does any research. Nobody does any like digging into the facts of the matter. They proclaim a point of view and repeat it over and over again, so that you think you're going to that you'll believe it. I don't. That to me, but the real issue here is, as much as I didn't watch Kimmel or Colbert or whatever, they still have the right to spew their nonsense if it's nonsense, or spew whatever they like that might be true as well, as do the right-wing influencers. As much as I dislike both the left and the right-wing influencers, I think
this is an interesting comment. So let me get this straight. Charlie Kirk stood for free speech, and now Jimmy Kimmel is let go for free speech.
Yes.
Yep, exactly.
Yes. Precisely.
And Rose, this is a fool's game. I'm out. Yeah. Gee, Ken Dryden didn't get this. He's a Canadian legend.
We did.
Yeah, things one day. I hope they get along so that we can run Canada smoothly. Fight, fight, fight. Well, we'll get to that one in a minute. There was one. Okay, so she says, sorry, Rose says, sorry, off topic. I seen a clip of Ford's home. Tell me why they all have police protection. Well, they damn well better have police protection. They need it.
Well, Ford's domicile has been attacked. His car was somebody tried to steal his car as well.
That's right.
So he should have. Unfortunate, we live in that era. I remember living in. I was like nose to nose with Pierre Trudeau one time, and
you shook your hand, most likely, right?
Well, no, I didn't. I was going to, but then I thought I remembered that I was supposed to be crowd control and not watching him, but watching the crowd. So I embarrassingly turned around and sort of tried to pretend to do my job. But the fact of the matter is,
yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, you can come up to somebody like that. You could come up to a star. You can come up to a famous person.
Yeah.
Now, every famous person, no matter what they're famous for,
or
a politician, we are in a sad point of view when I can't go and walk up to Doug Ford or anyone else without security making sure that I'm okay. And that's the state of the situation we're in now. It's even worse in the States, where they have a proliferation of guns everywhere. They have more guns than they have people. And it's easy to get a gun. So you see people who were shot. You know, RFK was shot. His brother Bobby was shot. Martin Luther King was shot. George Wallace was shot. Ronald Reagan was shot. This is nothing new in the United States. Political assassinations, attempt assassinations are nothing new in the States. The Minnesota governor, a lawmaker, her husband and her were shot, and that was a Maga guy, and he had a big list of Democrats he wanted to shoot, and but they caught him after he killed 2 people. Shapiro's house was firebombed in Pennsylvania. He's that was a Maga guy that did that. So the political violence, what is motivating people into the rage that they have? This stupid kid, this stupid young man, Tyler Robinson, shoots someone. For one thing, if he was politically smart, he knows he was going to make a martyr out of the guy. That's the last thing you want to do if you're thinking politically. But the very first thing is you are taking a person's life.
Yeah.
You are taking a person's life, a person that's not a criminal, is not a criminal, and is exercising his free speech, guaranteed. And he is, I don't know, as much as you might disagree with him, he still has the right to say whatever you have to say. It's getting out of hand, but this is typical of politics in the United States. You have political assassinations.
Yeah.
We have to worry about that here, and that's why Doug Ford has police protection.
And actually, it's the right. It's well. We've had some stupid ones even here. We've had local politicians. It was the MPP from St. Catharines who had his house something scrawled on his house. We had an attack upon Matt Sisko's house, St. Catharines mayor. And one other that I can't remember, a Niagara regional councillor, I believe, whose house was daubed. Or car was daubed. Car.
Yes, you have the tendency, there are people in your society who will be given into rage easily.
That's unacceptable.
Yes, and if you have a media that's irresponsible and motivates that rage for your side.
Yeah.
So you have left-wing influencers, you got right-wing influencers, and they motivate the anger and within their group, and in and among that group, it doesn't matter if you're left or right, there are the ones that are susceptible to rage and think they're going to change the world by doing something like cold-blooded murder.
Yeah. And it's definitely bad. Yeah. Okay.
And it's the reactions too. Remember that insurance guy that got killed, who got assassinated by a young fellow who figured he's going to the sort of the health care, the health insurances, which were beating people up pretty bad and discontinuing their cases or not even acknowledging them for maximum payout. Well, a young guy comes and he shoots one of them in the back. I can't even remember the names now, but that's the kind of rage I'm talking about. So he felt that by murdering this guy, things were going to change. It never changed.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. In pretty much the same vein, actually, Welland's mayor and regional councillors are urging provincial and federal governments to take action to strengthen parole restrictions, and this is particularly relating to this gentleman who's been known as Rob Primo, the guy in Thorold Jail who was refused bail. And the ongoing protests that are going on in Thorold Jail, but basically there's been because of the public outcry, the Welland mayor and members of the regional council from Welland are basically calling for bail reform to actually make sure that these people don't get out on bail.
Unfortunately, it takes a situation it takes a situation to happen. The government is not being proactive. They came up with easy bail and easy on crime type of legislation with hopes that a softer view of crime would help and reduce crime. With the criminals were treated better and with less stern, they would then become more towards. They wouldn't associate as much as with criminals and stuff. It was all wrong. In any case, a criminal is a criminal. People who make laws that say, "Oh, we shouldn't be so bad on criminals," think the criminals are like themselves.
Yeah, there's two ways of looking at that. The person who's a young offender who does something wrong, who potentially could learn the lesson, you really don't want them going in jail, right? But and where they've done a really minor crime, the person who is who is an older person who's committed a serious crime, and particularly obnoxious is, of course, paedophilia and rape and murder. Those sort of crimes always come to the fore, and it always seems that our society is not prepared for such people. And here we are in the Sleepy Hollows of the Niagara region, and we've got one such person in our jail here. And and we've got allegations, and that's all we can really say at this point, allegations about a crime that we feel to be being committed, the police feel to have been committed. Those allegations, that still has to go to trial, but the question, of course, is a valid one as to whether such a person should be let out on bail.
Well, yeah, anyone with violent crimes or repeat. If you put somebody out on, let's say somebody stole something from a store, let's say it's something valuable like a laptop or something like that, and they stole it, and okay, all right, we'll let you off this time, buddy. But then you steal it again, and you go back out in the road and you steal something else. Okay, you've made it very clear you didn't learn your lesson, and you know who's. But if you beat somebody violently,
it doesn't matter
when you beat somebody violently, then you go in jail and you stay there,
and that doesn't matter
because you are a potential risk to everyone. Yeah. Now the whole point here was a terrible thing has happened where somebody broke into a home and it was a home incursion, and he was a violent person, and he abused a 3-year-old girl, sexually abused a 3-year-old girl, and he had been in jail already for sex crimes and served 2.5 years. The idea here that he did not serve enough time, and once he was back out on the road, back out on the street, he went and did his own thing again.
Yeah.
His twisted-minded thing. So this guy is a criminal, and why was not he identified as a risk to society? And the argument here is we think we are doing the good thing by keeping someone in there in jail for only a minimal amount of time, and hoping that they will have self-reformed. Well, we see that did not happen here. This guy should have been identified as a risk to society. He was not. He spent 2.5 years in jail for an atrocious crime, and he's let out. So the comments here among the local politicians is that's enough. Enough is enough. We have to have bail reform. Now, of course, we've already talked about this because the Carney government is already considering all that, and they are going to readjust the bail. They've promised to readjust the bail ideas of the previous government, sort of the swinging gate of law, the turnstile thing. You go in and come right back out again. So Carney has promised to take on crime more seriously. Remember, there's an element of the society that are criminals, and and some will be reformed, others will not.
Yeah.
We know of our own friend William O'Sullivan there, who spent a lot of time in prison, 17 years of his life, it looks like. I think he said. Now, he came out finally reformed. He was reformable. Some of these others may not be. And what are you doing putting someone out on the street that's a violent criminal after 2.5 years and not being able to identify them as a threat to society? And they go ahead, and things could have been even worse than they were. So local politicians are jumping on it. Unfortunately, you had to take an incident like this to motivate it. It's really reactive rather than proactive.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Well, it's actually the fact that this gentleman's a repeat offender, which is, I think, the most obnoxious part of this, right? That's why you've got ongoing protests at Thorold Jail, right? And Thorold Jail protests, they're still going on today, right?
This is within hours of the assault. Daniel Senecal, 25, a convicted sex offender, was arrested by Niagara Regional Police. He's charged with aggravated sexual assault on a person under 16. The child was 3. Under 16, and I just lost my. Oh yeah, under 16, assault, choking, break and enter, and commit a dwelling and a sexual interference with a person under 16. Seriously.
Yeah.
And the court records show the Senecal served a 2.5-year sentence for sexually assaulting a 12-year-old Welland boy in 2021. He was convicted last year and released from custody in March. Something is seriously wrong with this guy.
Well, with a crime
should
like
have
that,
been able to identify this
yeah,
as a serious threat to society. But what they do is they give him 2.5 years in prison and let him out.
Is way too little.
With no, yeah, he should have a collar on him or something. Like he's a sex offender. He targets children. He's a violent criminal. So why doesn't he have a leg band or something so the police can identify where he is?
And the other,
and why did he only get 2.5 years?
Yeah, and the other question about sex offenders is been that the question about things like chemical castration. I'm not saying I'm in favor of it, but there are some people who do favor that, including some.
I tell you why.
Convicted.
I tell you why it's a bad idea. I tell you why it's a bad idea, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. That what the madness in the person's brain that makes them victimize children or women or weaker women than themselves has nothing to do with the sex drive. It has something to do with the idea of dominating.
Yeah.
In the United Kingdom, they castrated a guy, a sex offender. They castrated him, and when he got out, he did exactly the same thing, but this time he killed the child instead of just rape them. Because he couldn't rape them, he was infuriated. He needed to dominate some twisted thing in his mind. He killed the child. Now, this is a castrated man who did not have any sex impulse, but still had the need to dominate, because rape has very little to do with sex.
I know.
In rape has usually in cases like this has little to do with sex. It is the dominance over another person that is the twisted need of that person. Yeah.
And also the other thing to note in this regard is that a local MP, okay, so I think it's Fred Davis, the local MP for Niagara South, has actually been questioning this whole, is asking for changes to the criminal justice system after repeat sex offender attacks, about the same person.
Yeah, well, they're chiming in now at a time when the government is seriously looking at the disastrous Trudeau years when it came to crime.
Yeah.
We do also remember that how weird they were. Trudeau did not want to make handguns in the same. He did not want. He removed the obligatory sentencing for someone holding a handgun.
Yeah.
In a crime. So they took that away. And the reason why they took it away is because people, minority people and people of color were more likely to have guns in his mind anyway, or whatever. They were more likely to have guns, and therefore they have to be easier on the minority communities and people of color.
I'm not so, you see, has there been, Canadian police, Canadian authorities have been known to have been racist in the past. We can't deny that, right? There's been more incidences of.
This has nothing to do with the racism right now. It's talking about sentencing, and if I don't know, the data show
in relation to what
more people of color had guns, and the reasoning in crime, and the reasoning that Trudeau initially he did not want to make handguns the same as assault type guns. He wanted them somewhat exempted early on, and it was because he was under pressure, evidently, that the criminals, the gangs, and stuff like that were mostly made up of people of color, and therefore that was a consequence of the bigotry that was put upon them. So they needed a break. I don't think he talked to the people of color that have to put up with people with guns.
Yeah. Well,
people of color don't want people to have guns.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think colored people want guns either. Black people don't want guns either. I don't want guns.
You don't want them in the neighborhood anymore.
I don't want them in the neighborhood. No. And equally well, every right reasoning person doesn't want guns in the neighborhood.
So the very idea of removing the obligatory sentence against a person to have a gun in a crime, that's the first thing. You got a couple of years right away just because you had a gun. So if you get caught in a crime and you've got a gun, a handgun, and you used it to either threaten people, then you get a sentence right away. You get, I don't know, 1 or 2 years right away just for that.
Yeah. Just for that.
On top of the other stuff. So, but the Trudeau government removed that, and that's the wrong thing to do. That shows you that they're unrealistic.
And there can be no doubt that cries centering on safeguarding children get widespread support, and they get widespread support from every side of the political spectrum.
Sure, they're the most vulnerable, and they are our future.
Yeah.
And what we don't want is traumatized kids out there. And it's bad. We have a comment. Can you read
it? So we just let people walk into our homes and take what they want. Rape or children, rape. I don't know what that one says. Kill us, and I don't know what's going on. Yeah. We don't let people into our homes. We do need to change something about, security of home. I know of people who would say that anybody walks into my home, they're dead.
Well, yeah, that'll put you in jail too. So
I'm not such a person. I don't think I would be able to defend my. I fear that I wouldn't be able to defend myself in that situation.
I got a hockey stick. I'd conk him on the head.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's the only weapon I have really is a hockey stick, and actually a homeless guy tried to get into my house one time. So am I going to kill him?
Yeah, you're not. No.
Well, I'm going to call the cops.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So they basically, and we have that case where a guy broke into another guy's apartment, and the guy defended himself, and he beat the guy so badly that he needed to go into emergency. He was on close to death. So the guy who's the homeowner, he gets charged because of excess. We have this law here, and some states do too. You cannot use excessive force if somebody breaks into you or commits a crime against you. So if somebody starts poking you with a stick, you knock the stick out of his hand, and you give him a couple of shots. Boom, boom. You're okay with that? You phone the cops. That's it. That's not unreasonable. But if then you jump on him, take the stick and beat him and kick him and all that, that's excessive force.
Yeah.
So what they're trying to so what do you call excessive force? If you're up against somebody that's really big and's got a stick, and you were able to get the advantage of them, but you don't want them to get the advantage back again, you might still keep hauling on them, because you don't want them to recover. But all these things are speculative, and right now, our local politicians are jumping on the bandwagon that has already begun. And unfortunately, the reason why they're doing that is because of a heinous crime from a sex offender who only got 2.5 years in jail for doing another heinous crime.
Yep. And this is the offense. The sentences are too low. I think we can all agree upon that.
And the post supervision of a criminal like this is a sex offender. This is a person who's done grotesque things. And why aren't this person collared? This person is going to be a threat to people all his life because of whatever's going on in his brain that causes him to try to rape a 3-year-old or try to sexually violate a 12-year-old. Something is wrong with him. So if you let him out of prison, you're going to have to keep an eye on him.
Yeah. Well,
because you know that the impulse in his mind is to commit to a crime again.
Yeah, and herein lies a problem that we have with the criminal justice system and how we put people away in prison.
The prison part is okay. You can argue whether or not the prison sentence.
I mean sentences. You know, there is a reform.
My idea here is this guy has twisted needs, and he is a danger to society and children. So when you let him out of prison, and you know that this guy is a real weirdo, he's going to be a potential threat at any time.
Yeah,
because he's not normal, and you have to keep an eye on him. If you have to put a collar on him so that he know where he is at all times. That kind of thing, like other sex offenders or other violent criminals.
Ankle bracelet or something, yeah.
Yes, ankle bracelet, yeah. So you know where he is at all times, and you have to be able to keep an eye on him and have him come into his probation officer more than others do.
Yeah,
not like a car thief. Car thief goes out, steals a car, gets caught. Well, he's just a bad dude. He's looking for the easy way out. But a sex offender like this, you let him back out in society, and what are you going to do?
Yeah, we don't.
You just leave. You just wait till the next time he does something terrible.
Yeah, we have to be a lot. We have to think more about how we treat those types of crimes.
Yeah. In any case, I think we're past our time.
We are past our time anyway, so we'll leave it at that. All right.
Yes, and I welcome the initiative of the local people, but our local politicians, but they are they're kind of late to the game, I think. But late is better than not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the reason that motivated this was a heinous crime, and
Well, the crime happened in Welland, didn't it? As far as I'm understanding.
yes.
Yeah. So it was right that Welland politicians came out on this.
Well, it's our own too. Like Mona Patel, she's brought it up at city, and so the whole idea is a whole bunch of lower tier politicians that are trying to get better results from the court and better laws. And I must point out though that in the article it does say a rise in crime throughout Niagara, more car thefts, more break-in enterings, more thievery, and all of these things.
Yeah,
we see a rising crime in all areas, and so they're pointing the finger at the government, saying, "Well, it's your lax ability to govern and to govern justly."
Yeah, and there's an element of truth about it. We need to do more investigation. Don't take rash actions, but we need to investigate, understand, and correct.
I think the people who make laws that are light on criminals are usually people who've never met one, never been in a company of them. Yeah. They live in gated communities and they're all nice and safe, and they've got lots of money and stuff like that. And they say, "Oh, those poor criminals. Oh, we can help them out by not being so severe on them." Yeah. Well, what you're doing is being severe on your own populations by letting these goofs out.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Okay. But a serious discussion needs to be held about criminal reform.
Yeah, the tidal wave.
Sentencing and everything like that. Because there are some people who commit crimes who can be reformed, and there are people who commit crimes who cannot be reformed. And it's a case of understanding the difference between the two and whether a person falls into a particular category or not.
Yeah, and just before we go, I'd like to bring up Gaza again.
Yeah,
19 Palestinians got killed yesterday when the IDF bombed in and around the hospital, the only running hospital yet. They know people are going to be sheltering around the hospital because they feel it's safe, or at least safer than the areas around. The IDF knows that, so every once in a while they bomb the crap out of the people in and around the hospital, saying, "Oh, well, that's where Hamas is hanging out." Well, no, that's where most people are hanging out, trying to either have loved ones in the hospital and are waiting to see how they are visiting them and that. Yeah. And so the IDF and Netanyahu are war criminals, and they are doing talk about ugly things. They're doing ugly things every day to children and innocents, murdering and maiming them with the bombs they get from Donald J. Trump. And I can say all day long that it has to stop, but until some real action happens, it has to stop. And they are not going to have any hostages left if they keep doing this. They have 22 hostages that are now starving to death because there's not enough food. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, and they're bombing the crap out of them. And they've already killed some of the hostages with their own military actions. Yeah. So stop it. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu.
All right. Bye.